Hey everyone, Shane here with etrailer.com. Today I have a 2019 Chevrolet Express van. I'm going to walk through how to install the TowPro Liberty with the ETBC7. So if the vehicle does not have a factory tow package, you're going to need the ETBC7. ETBC7 is going to give you your 7-pole in the back as well as a 4-pole. Not only get all your functions back here for a trailer you might be pulling with brakes, but it's going to give you all the wiring to connect to a brake controller so you can have control over those brakes on that trailer from inside the cab of the truck. Our neighbor today actually paired the ETBC7 with the REDARC Liberty. Unlike some of the traditional ones, which are a little bit bigger, they're called knee knockers. Cabs vehicles nowadays are getting a lot more filled up, a lot less space to put those bigger ones. The REDARC's actually about the size of the end of my thumb, and it's just a button you mount on your dash, and it has all the functions you need like a normal brake controller. As far as the installation process, it's really not difficult. It is a little bit time consuming. Once you get your 7-pole mounted in the back, you get your circuit breakers mounted underneath the hood, you get your brake controller mounted inside the vehicle, the rest of it is just wire connections. So follow along with me. I'll walk through how to do it. If it's something you don't have the time to do or don't have the room to do, you can always check out our dealer locator and find someone near you that can do it. To start your installation, you're going to need a long bracket or a short bracket, depending on how your hitch is set up and how close it is to your bumper. I'm using a long bracket here. I just bent it so that I can mount my 7-pole. In the back of this will actually not hit it, and I can run it over to connect all my wiring. So we'll take our 7-pole, we'll feed the whole thing through the bracket, depending on how you're going to mount it, whether you're going to mount it this way or this way. I'm going to be mounting this way. It's going to come with the hardware. You're going to have 4 Phillips head screws, a lock washer, a flat washer, and a nut. We're going to feed them through like this, put our flat washer, lock washer, followed by the nut on the back side. .3/8 socket, Phillips screwdriver. You want to make sure if you're using a socket wrench, you don't tighten it down so tight that you crack this. You can actually hold it with your hand and get that tight enough on there. We're going to take our bracket. You're going to get another screw with a nut. Once you get that on, you're going to take this 4-pole, push it right there. Take the rest of it, push it back behind your hitch. We're going to take our existing 4-pole that's on the vehicle. If you don't have it, you're going to need it. We're going to plug it into this 4-pole. I'm going to take a zip tie, run it through both sides, zip tie it together, and that'll make sure that these don't come disconnected. Cut our extra zip tie, or hanging out there, and then we can cut that off. So we're not going to be using the yellow wire. We're going to be using the blue and the black, and the white is going to have a ring terminal on it. It's going to get grounded. I'm going to ground this right up here on the bottom where the other ground is, for the black and the blue wire. You can leave these on if you want. I recommend using heat treat butt connectors. Since our connection is going to be outside, it'll seal around those connections and keep them from corroding. So I'm going to cut these off. We'll strip them back. Go ahead and get the ground done. You're going to have about 25 foot of jacketed wire. You need to go from here up to the front of the vehicle and run it into the engine compartment. I'll show you how I ran it. You want to make sure when you run it, just stay away from anything hot or moving. It's easy on this van because all of our wiring, factory wiring, and all that runs right along this frame rail on the top. So here in the back, on the inside of our, in between our spring pack and our frame, there's actually loops that have factory, it looks like a brake cable that runs through there. So I ran it through those clamps. And again, I just followed the factory wiring all the way up to the front of the vehicle. I'll come back in just a little bit and I'll zip tie this down to my factory wiring so it stays secured. Now we're going to take the end of our jacketed wire back here by the hitch. We're going to strip back some of the insulation. We're going to have a black and white wire inside. Black wire is going to go to black wire. White wire is going to go to blue wire. Now we can take our heat source and shrink up the butt connect. We'll take all the extra, we'll kind of bundle it up here and get it zip tied up here at the top. That way it's out of the way and doesn't get damaged. Here's where I pulled the jacketed wire up. I got it zip tied right here to this bundle of extra factory wires. Again, inside we have a black and white wire. The black wire, strip back the insulation. The black wire, you're going to run it across over near your battery. You're going to have two circuit breakers, 30 amp and a 40 amp. Mount your 40 amp. You're going to take the black wire that you ran across, it's going to run to the silver post. You're going to take the extra part of it that you cut off, add a ring terminal, put it on the copper post. Add a large ring terminal at the end. It's going to eventually be connected to the positive side of the battery. Now, you're going to need an extra black wire because we have to go from the positive battery back over and then inside the vehicle. So you're not going to have enough black wire in this kit. So you're going to need to pick up some extra black wire. Probably, I'd say probably another 10 foot. Run it from the 30 amp. Cut a little piece off, positive side of the battery like you did the other one. From the copper post, run it back the same way across the vehicle over to the driver's side. Right down in this corner, there's a grommet that goes right inside the footwell of the vehicle. Put a little slit in it and take that black and white wire and run it into the inside of the car. You're going to need an extra white wire. The extra white wire is going to be the ground from the brake controller once it's mounted inside the vehicle. It has to be grounded to the negative side of the battery. So while you're running the black wires, run a white one over there as well. From the silver post, run it back across over to the driver's side. We're going to remove this lower panel. 10 millimeter screw over here, one over here. This thing just pops out towards the seat. The best place that I found to put it is going to be right here. This actually has a lot of space, and this is all open back behind it. We're going to need space about this much behind the dash panel for the back of the brake controller. This spot right here is a perfect spot to get it. So now we're going to get the hole drilled here so we can get our brake controller button mounted. We can use a step bit, you can use a regular bit, drill bit. Take this little gray piece here. I'm going to use it as a template for a little hole at the top. Make sure this is centered over the hole. Take a piece of tape and tape it on there. going to use a small drill bit, small enough that it will fit through that. This little part here is what's going to stick out from the backside through the hole. The rest of this is going to be on the inside of the dash or behind it. On the backside, you need to determine which side you want to use. You have one end that is a 90, and you have one end that's straight. Because of where we are in the dash, even though there's nothing back there, I'm going to use the 90. I'm going to plug it in the back like this. There's a little LED light right at the top of this. We need to try to get it to come out of that hole. Or at least line it up with it. We need to tighten this down quite a bit. We want to be able to, when we put that button on, we want it to click like this. That's our manual override. So I'm going to get a wrench so I can tighten this down, because my fingers can't do it. This little gray piece that goes on there, if you can get it on there and get it tight enough, great. You don't necessarily have to have it. The LED light in there is still going to go through that hole and show up the numbers. I think our dash is just a little bit too thick to have this on there, to get this tight enough and this on there where we can have our manual override. I'd much rather the manual override work than to have to use this. Next, we'll take our brake controller box, plug the other end of that cable into it. On the opposite end, you're going to do a cable like this, or some wires like this. You're going to plug into the opposite end. We need to take this and mount it underneath the dash. It can be mounted in any orientation. It doesn't really matter. I would not zip tie it to any factory wiring though, because it really needs to be on something solid so it learns its direction. I'm thinking right on the side of this metal bracket right here is going to be the best spot to put it. Like where this is sitting, this panel that goes in here mounts right there. I need to look at the bottom of that panel and make sure that thing's not too wide. That it's going to interfere with this plug right here. So on the top side of this bracket, there's actually two holes. They line up perfect with the two holes here. So I'm going to run a zip tie in each one. Get that mounted just like that. Then I can run another one down here on the bottom. Off the back of that plug, you're going to have a blue wire, black wire, red wire, and white wire. Blue wire is going to connect to this white wire that we ran in from the very back of the vehicle. That's going to be our brake controller signal for that plug. Our black wire that we ran in is going to go to the black wire. The white wire, the extra white that we cut off of this, we're going to attach it to the white wire, run it back out through the grommet, and that's going to connect to that white wire that's going over to the negative side of the battery. This red wire is going to go to the cold side of the brake light switch, which we'll determine that here in just a bit. End of our blue wire. Run it into the buck connector on the white wire. Black wire, we'll do the same thing. And we'll take the extra white, again, run it back through the grommet. We'll connect to the white wire that we have running across over to the negative side of the battery. So typically, the red wire coming off the brake controller would tap into the cold side of the brake light switch on the inside of the vehicle. For this particular vehicle, there is no cold side of the switch. So that means we are going to tap into the fuse for the brake signal. Fuse panel is right down here. This one that's missing right here is actually a 15 amp fuse. That's going to be the one for our brake signal. How you test for the cold side is have somebody in the vehicle turn the key on. You're going to take a tester, And you're going to touch one post on one side. If it comes on, that's the hot side. Touch the other side and have somebody push on the brake pedal. That signal should go off on that test light. Once you determine the cold side, you're going to need a fuse tap. It's going to look like this. It's basically going to replace a 15 amp fuse. You're going to put your 15 amp fuse that you pulled out, put it in, and then add a second one. We're going to take an extra piece of wire, connect it here, run this wire in through that grommet and connect to the red wire off the brake controller. Once we get that connection, now we can go out and connect everything to our battery. Now that we've got it connected to the battery, we'll test out our plug to make sure we're getting 12 volts, all of our functions, as well as our brake signal. Left turn, right turn, brakes, brake controller. Going to do it for a look at and installation of the REDARC Trailer Liberty and ETBC7 on a 2019 Chevrolet Express van.